Welcome back. You're still watching the Afia Morning Show live from ENUGU City, Nigeria. This is in the southeast, of course, bringing you insights from the region, stories that matter to you and those of us right here in the studio. I am Nathalie Uku, and Oji Wachuku is always here to get us kick-started in the right way possible. How are you doing, Oji? Good morning.
Doing great. Good morning.
You sound so mellow. I mean, it's just like an anticlimax.
Don't mind me, it's Friday, by the way. Thank God it's Friday.
Exactly.
And it's been a week.
It has been a week. How would you describe your week in one word?
In what word? Exhausting.
Exhausting. What made it so exhausting?
And so many things to do at the same time. Do work, school, assignment, journals, writing, and all that. But the thing is, at the end of the day, I don't even see these things as anything. It's just what keeps you alive. This is what keeps you living. You just have to keep doing things. But you just don't stay back there and not do anything right and just while away. It's best that you involve and you invest in things that could sharpen your brain, get you feel like you're alive, you're living, right? The stress, and when you get tired, you sleep, you wake up, it repeats the same cycle, and
exactly.
That's life.
I mean, something really, I don't know, I heard this, I don't know who told me this, whether it was you or someone else. Sometimes you probably want to go out, you want to take a picture, and you're like, oh my God, my eye bags, oh my God.
I was one that told you.
Yes, oh my God,
my... the things that make you
so essentially, it shows that you are living. Sometimes people get so concerned about, oh, is it perfect? Is that a perfect picture? I don't want candid pictures. Please make sure you don't do, make sure I don't. I mean, sometimes you just have to let go and realize that you are alive. I mean, if you're sweaty, I want to take a picture. It could have been that you just went for a very important workout, or you just went for an engagement or something. So go ahead and just be yourself.
What that does to you,
right?
Maybe you're sweating, you want to take a picture, or maybe you've engaged yourself in some activity. It reminds you that maybe next few months or years, when you go back looking at these pictures, that sweat will remind you of exactly the reason why you took that picture and all that. So memories, always have to find a way and keep memories. That's only what keeps you alive, right?
That's right. I mean, at the end of the day, it's the candid photos that would look better 20 years from now. I doubt the perfect photos will be what you'll be looking out for. You'd want to see when you almost spilled that glass of wine or that cup of coffee while you are talking to somebody. So do relax and try to live every day. We're joined now by a new guest analyst making his debut on the show this morning, Barrister Okenna Nnebedum, who is a principal attorney, Gavel Law Office. Great to have you join us. Good morning.
Thanks for having me.
Good morning.
Thank you, viewers at home. Good morning.
I hope you've been enjoying the Barr conference.
Very well indeed.
Some people say that there's been a lot of partying. Oji is one of those people, a jamboree, that all they see making the rounds on social media include the partying, the enjoyment. They don't really know if any serious conversations are being had.
Why not?
Would you like to counter that?
Why not?
So why is it not trending?
Why not?
Why the serious conversations not trending? Why are we seeing more of Dino Malaya and a couple of other people trying to boogie? I'm not saying it's wrong, by the way. After the whole serious talks, you have to go and unwind. By the way.
Very well.
Fair enough.
Well, I'm just concerned that at this point in time in the country and all we're facing, right? I think on the forefront, in the front burner, what should be, should later the whole internet should be those conversations on how to narrate some of all these issues, bothering Nigeria.
Let me tell you something. A story was told about a vehicle loaded with books, and unfortunately, on transit, it had accident, and the books littered on the floor. And none of them were stolen for 2 weeks. You know why?
Why?
If those trucks were carrying petroleum products, you know what will happen? People will go to scoop. So right now, you begin to question our thirst and appetite for intellectuals. In an agency that is structured in such a way that we'll have 2 clear days, 3 clear days minus the opening session of plenaries, at least 3 topics in plenaries till up to 3 p.m. before you now go for your breakout sessions. How would you say that it doesn't have intellectual content? We have discussed and we had enriching discussions, enriching panelists on daily basis. The boogies you saw were evening programs, because all work and no play actually makes Jack a dull boy. So our general conference contains activities for the brain, activities for the mind, activities for, like you talked about, keeping fit. We started with the morning, walks.
Yeah.
And Enugu City felt that we came on board 5 kilometers morning walk. That trended first, isn't it?
Yeah.
Our president led the team, and you saw some other, prominent Nigerians were also part of that show. And then the opening ceremonies, you are not aware that games were going on in Enugu. Those who had to participate in the female football and the male football.
Yeah, we know about the events. Yeah.
It's because they say that you didn't see so much.
No, I'm just
Which of the topics resonated with you? Some people said they really enjoyed the topic on leadership for transformation and dirty money. They kind of got new information.
Yeah, keep talking about the dirty money conversation.
Which topic really resonated with you throughout the conference?
All of them, almost all, but particularly the one that has to do with the justice delivery.
Yeah.
So much of bad image of the judiciary has really tainted the output of what comes out through the courts. And it was re-echoed by people like the Sultan of Sokoto. He mentioned it. I don't know, it should trend too, because he actually mentioned that it does appear that for now, that what happens in the judiciary is a cash and carry system.
How did you feel about the remark by Obi Ezekwesili at the conference?
It was very passionate. She spoke from her heart, and she spoke the mind of many Nigerians. It also came with a subtle threat, that if you invite me again,
I will not come. Quite interesting.
But, sorry. Now, normally, after the MBA conferences, right, people tend to, critics or pundits, having a conversation of, so what happens? So what happens after the conversation? Are you going to see changes come? Are we going to see some ripple effect on the conversations had bordering in the issues, in Nigeria? But my question now is, this conference has come and definitely going, and what happens after?
Right.
The whole conversation.
How is it implemented?
Law is a practice that is driven by individual chambers, and the activities of Nigerian Bar Association are driven through sections, and there are entities created by the NBA, some statutory creations. For example, yesterday we had our AGM. During the annual general meeting, you have the EXCO, give account of their stewardship. In this context, Mazi Afam Osigwe SN is given his first 1 year stewardship, and he will give the last at the next one. So there are also statutory reports annually given by the Nigerian Human Rights Commission, legal aids and stuff. Those are entities who the implementation of whatever comes out of the communique issued at the end of this AGC, we will begin to see it manifest in parts of what they go to do hereafter.
All right, let's take a look at headlines now, see if any of the remarks made the news this morning. We'll start with Nigerian News Direct and the top story here. Boldest one, NEC approves new 2026-2030 medium-term national development plan. Projects accelerated economic growth, improved food security in 2026. How we increase production in OML 17 with 100% indigenous capacity, has Energy's CEO. Access Holdings names Innocent Ike as new GMD. Why we chose to endorse Governor Adeleke for re-election, this according to the Osun LNLC and the Nolgay. Federal government hikes fees for obtaining Nigerian passports. On the Daily Times, COAS raises concerns over drug abuse among soldiers in conflict zones. Voter registration meaningless without electoral judicial reforms. This according to Atiku Abubakar. Battle for mining sites. Officer gunned down as police civil defense clash in Ebonyi. Nigerians to pay more for passports as NIS raises fees to 100,000 naira, 200,000 naira. On Daily Trust, universities head for strike. Why Barr report is still idle 6 years after commissioning, this according to a reps panel. Kwankwanso ACF decry Alaba Rago market demolition. 420,000 Nigerian children at risk of malnutrition this year. Of course, still here on Daily Trust, federal government hikes passport fees second time in 1 year. On The Guardian, bad for business, surging unruly fan conduct, match day violence plunge NPFL in crisis. Federal government approves lifetime salary for retiring senior officers. Tertiary institutions on edge as Asuu Sanip federal government feud heightened strike fears. Nigeria facing malnutrition, 79% food insecurity, says federal government. Ethiopia to rank second in SSA's urea production with Dangote's MMT fertilizer plant. On Nigerian Tribune, federal government denies signing any agreement with the Academic Staff Union of Universities, describes documents as draft, sets up technical team to fine-tune government's proposal. Federal government targets 1 week passport delivery, vows to end racketeering. Editors Guild decries killing of journalists in Gaza. PDP considering Jonathan Obi for 2027 presidency, Bauchi governor confirms. And lastly here, we're under attack. NNPC CEO cries out on workers' back reforms.
Okay, starting from The Nation. Ojulari, NNPCL lost $500 million monthly to refineries operation. Oil giants will adopt private partnership to ensure sustainable profitability. PDP will win OB with 2027 ticket, says Bala Secondus active again in party. NEC okays 4-year medium-term development plan. Abuja Kaduna route safe, says Omokri after tour. Ebonyi raises minimum wage to 90,000 naira monthly. Government's panel to review post-2009 agreements with Asuu. Polytechnic workers serve strike notice. And I am driving growth with foreign engagement, says Tinubu. And lastly, on The Nation, DSS files charges against 9 suspects over killings in Benue Plateau. Moving over to The Punch. Tariff war. FG intervenes as states discourse swift deepens. NERC summons meeting between states, energy commissioners and discourse operators. Tariff reduction can't work, says discourse. And our focus on power sector reforms attributed to the commissioners. FG Asuu clash over 2021 agreement. NEC unveils roadmap for $1 trillion economy by 2030. Long-term neglect hindering refineries revamp, says NNPC. FG defends passport price hike to 100,000 naira, 200,000 naira. Motorists laments slow Shagamu Ijebu Ode road repairs. Awaiting trial, inmates feeding gobs 14 billion naira in 8 months. INEC pushes back on opposition, rejects Southwest voter figures. How 8,000 naira disputes led to Lagos market killing, says traders.
All right. And Oji, hold that thought. We're going to a quick commercial now. When the morning show returns, we'll continue the review. Do stay tuned.
Welcome back, and this is the Afia morning show, and we are giving you the headlines, making our dailies this morning. And starting again from Daily Independence, NEC endorses practical roadmap towards Tinubu's $1 trillion economy, urges vaccination boost as new polio variant threatens Northwest. Over 40% of industries have abandoned national grid, says survey. PVC ADC asks INEC to explain extraordinary registration in Southwest. Court dismisses motion to stop Rivers LG polls. Mbah Revamps upgrades Nigergas after 30-year dormancy. My job under threat for proposing revamp of refineries, says Ojulari. And voter registration only meaningful with electoral judicial reforms attributed to Atiku. Moving over to the Vanguard, 2027 opposition parties battle INEC over voters' data. Dangote Group, Ethiopia signed deal to build 2.5 billion fertilizer plant, $2.5 billion fertilizer plant. FG Asuu disagree over agreement. I am under attack. Some people are plotting to unseat me, NPCLG CEO Ojulari says. Guild of Editors condemns killings of journalists in Gaza. 2027, Amechi rules not stepping down. Declares interest in ADC presidential ticket. Terrorism. DSS files charges against 9 suspects over Benue Plateau killings. Diaspora inflows hit $600 million monthly, attributed to Cardasso. And lastly, on the Vanguard, court declines to stop Rivers LG poll as police restrict movement. Lastly, Blueprint. FG has no signed deal with Asuu on 2009 agreement, attributed to Alausa. Says government won't settle for deal. Not tenable. Sustainable. You are wrong, varsity teachers, reply minister. Governor Nasi appoints 58-year-old Sanusi Sami new emir of Zuru. Access Holdings appoints Innocent Ike substantive GMD CEO. In sports, Bafana coach announces final squad for Super Eagles cracker. NNPCL under attack, Ojulari tells Spengasan. Union thumbs up ongoing reforms. And lastly, tension in Niger as troops kill 50 bandits. Criminals flee to Zungeru. We will intensify operations in Katsina, Niger, order, says COAS.
All right. Thank you, Oji, for those headlines. Barrister Okenna is still here with us to assess these dailies. Let's begin with Daily Trust. Captured very well the implications of the ongoing debacle between the federal government and the Academic Staff Union of Universities concerning an agreement. Now both of them are trading words about what was signed, what was not, and who signed what. Federal government is denying signing any agreement, while Asuu is, of course, hinging its own argument on the agreement that was said to be signed. Now the Daily Trust is saying that universities are heading for strike. And that is the ripple effect of all this. All these threats of action, protests, this is what the message has been. Universities are heading for strike in Nigeria because of this back and forth. What's your take on this development?
You see, for people who don't understand that Nigeria lacks memory, or at best, the federal government lacks memory, they tend to put out impression out there that the federal government can never be relied on. And it is very bad to have a perspective of a government in that light. Regarding Asuu, it has become a recurring decimal. Some people will also argue against Asuu. Is the only way you have to air your grievances is only by strike, every time strike? Don't you have any other way you can, do your protest, probably like picketing or down in tools and stuff like that? There are other labor, international labor conventions establish how you can pass your grievances and then, picket whatever you think are your needs or your service conditions. Mm-hmm. But now to think of it, talking as a lawyer, if parties executed an agreement, is it for the other party to deny outrightly just because of the responsibilities contained in that agreement? It is the height of irresponsibility, because the federal government is coming out telling the whole world that it was a draft. And because it talks about practice survivor, parties are bound by their agreement. So, and when agreements have been exchanged as draft copies, what about the signing? All of us, we don't lack memories. If you go to YouTube, you can download how much of those meetings, we are held that time. During one person will come on board today, and they'll try to politicize the Asuu or politicize the NLC or divide them, and get a very short, quick fix, you call it. When you have that quick fix, the Asuu or whatever will go back to work. And the brunt is borne by our kids who are in school, 4 years courses, doing it for 5 years or 6 years. It doesn't tell good. It's not.
Well, my question is, right, you point out something that's why always strike. But we know the kind of country we are living in.
If not strike, what?
So that's the question I want to ask. When it comes to the government, selling amicably, right? It never tallies, right? It's only when there is strike action that they start coming to the table to have conversations. So what could actually be the way to settle in a country like Nigeria, right? If not strike?
If not strike, then nothing. So I stand with Asuu. You see, today, go to any universities in Nigeria or like any health facilities, they have short-staffed. The system has been so eroded by people who do Jackpot syndrome. If you understand the world we are in today, we are in a global village where labor is rewarded across countries. And if you see where your rewards come bigger and better, working conditions, you can migrate because migration is also a right.
But the president is telling the aspirants to start coming back to Nigeria.
But coming back to what?
At the same time,
coming back to where you don't obey agreement.
Still on Asuu, I just want to get where you clearly stand on this, because you said that sometimes you fault Asuu for always saying strike, strike, strike. You talked about how the weight is borne by the children, the students in the schools. But you also say on the second side that you stand with Asuu for going on strike. So could you clarify where you stand on this matter of alternative industrial actions?
I stand on better working conditions. I stand on obedience, respect for entered agreements.
Then where they do not exist,
where they don't exist,
do?
I also stand on migration. Where migrate to where your services are well remunerated. I stand with Asuu too. I have never missed word in standing with Asuu. A situation where federal government in their teams, any available flight going to any place, holding any of those conferences, you see Nigerian federal officials jet in with their retinue of official or unofficial staff. They go there, ask them, they say we'll go for foreign investors. They just went to Brazil the other time. Forgetting that at home, you see, people are reading your headlines. People are watching what happens. People are watching how you treat your citizens, how you treat your workers. That's why citizens you are inviting to come back. They communicate with live. They have relations at home. They know how those their relations or classmates who are lecturers they understand.
Do you see universities going on strike? Do you see this happening? Are we going to see another period of time where students would sit idly?
It is inevitable, but I put the blame on the federal government. They have played lip service so long on the education sector and remuneration of teachers at that level. Infrastructure also to those institutions has been on the decline. I see students live in hostels where there are no adequate facilities. I learned that most hostels in the University of Nigeria cannot sustain more than 30% of the students. And you begin to ask what happens to TET fund, what happens to some of all these laws that have been put in place to run the institutions by autopilot. So you don't depend on federal government all the time too. But they tamper with all these revenues. Companies pay tax.
So what would the strike change? Is federal government ready to change the situation? You talked about the hostels not being able to accommodate 30% of the students. How about the conditions of these hostels? How would the strike change these universities? How would the strike make the federal government do better?
Responsibility. Federal government should declare state of emergency on education.
What have the previous strikes changed?
It will put them on their toes and you keep on striking. Yes. Responsibility. In this country is a country where we don't have consequences. Part of the news we're going to review right now is the medium-term expenditure profile and 30,000 or how many million trillion economy. How can you achieve that if your labor force is not well remunerated? How can we achieve that where you don't obey simple contracts? How can you achieve that in a situation where there are no consequences for over bloated budgetary allocations.
Right.
But what would you say about the the LG, denying this agreement, by the way, and also setting up technical team to fine-tune the government's proposal? Are we seeing a government that is more reactive than being proactive in, attending to the cases of institutions in Nigeria?
See, the present APC-led regime is behaving as though they were not handed over power by an APC regime too.
Mm.
The APC blames the APC.
The APC blames the APC. Mm. So, you see the height of irresponsibility. I'm telling you, people should take responsibility. We are not handed over power by a government that came from Guinea-Bissau or wherever. You are all in the same party together. You are still running
the same
ideology and all the stuff. So take responsibility. And I continue to re-echo the fact that in these climes, let there be consequences for not doing or achieving some stated objectives. When you push out a narrative, it becomes the policy of government. And a situation where pandering to the whims and caprices of political gerrymandering, it becomes the policy of government, or where propaganda becomes the policy of government. It threatens international investment or international inflow. And it also gives room for people to keep on living the education system.
You still have trust in our educational institutional system in Nigeria and how it's being run. What would you say thus far?
Yes, I want to separate what the government is doing as separate from what the candidates or what the students are doing by themselves, or what the lecturers are able to give to the students. I give kudos to Nigerians at every level. Recently, a Nigerian teenager won one of all the available awards.
But there's a few in many.
There's a few in many, but it tells you also that the resilience we have as a people does not oftentimes reflect the dearth or the near absence of government incentives for those education institutions. Whether you talk about the colleges or whether you talk about the higher institutions, Nigerians do better. If they don't have the curriculum that that is world standard, you don't see them performing well when they get out of here.
Or when
they are absorbed abroad. When the head is rot,
yeah,
it affects definitely. You mentioned that it's a chunk percentage out of the many. Yes, we still have some people who fall out of the line, and then you see them reflect in the quality of leaders or people who end up trending towards joining politics as the biggest game or the biggest industry right now. When you engage them, you notice that some of them don't have nothing upstairs.
Sadly.
All right, let's take a look at Nigerian News Direct. NEC approves new 2026-2030 medium-term national development plan. I mean, that's a really interesting headline, looking at some kind of framework for 30 years even, some kind of national economic plan to help boost the economy of Nigeria and accelerate growth, essentially. How optimistic are you about this outcome of the NEC meeting?
It has never been this good on paper and meetings. The devil is in implementation. Yes, if you don't have a judiciary where the people have the hope that they will get justice from the system, medium term, long term, whatever, investors, if you don't see where corporate citizens that operate in Nigeria here are not well treated. Do you know the amount of local contractors that are being owed? Local debts Nigerians owe contractors in this economy. If you know that, you begin to ask yourself, by the time you begin to rate all this $1 trillion economy and all the stuff, you ask, what are the incentives? What is on ground? So I appreciate the fact that they have met, yes. They have set out the time frame, yes. They have set out the goals, but what drives it is sincerity, integrity, and performance index. How do we measure the performances? And then what are the consequences for not following those roadmaps?
Right. On the Punch, tariff war, federal government intervenes as states' discourse rift deepens. Now, we know that the state, well, Enugu State has basically led the charge on trying to reduce tariffs for Band A consumers, and that has been met with immense pushback from NEC and EDC as well. The discourse generally are not in support of that tariff reduction. And now we're seeing the federal government intervening, NEC summoning a meeting between the state energy commissioners and disco operators. Now, the discos are saying that the tariff reduction can't work because it's not reflective of what it costs to generate power. And the general sentiment there, or the general remark, is that until states can generate their own electricity, they have no business trying to cut down tariffs for what they cannot and do not control. But you have the regulators saying that we just want power sector reforms. Commissioners are echoing the same thing. They just want a system where consumers can once again smile and pay less. They are even on the technical side bringing out a lot of new information. That is this subsidy on electricity that we should have been enjoying long before now. But clearly, this is not the way that the NERC wants it to go or the discos want it to go. They always have their own counter reactions to what the regulator says. How do you feel about the information coming out during this tariff war and the current debacle between NEC, the national regulator, the state regulator, and the discos?
I feel betrayed. I feel betrayed by the federal government. The federal government is headed by an executive that operates from Asuu Villa. Remind yourself how much has been budgeted for Asuu Villa electricity. They have removed themselves from the national grid, and you see them budget some trillions recently for alternative energy. Now, how does that drive investments made by discos in generating electricity in this country? So I feel betrayed if I'm one of the Gencos or one of the discos, because you can't tell me as an investor that you want, electricity regime to, benefit everyone, and then where you live and where you operate as the president of the country, you are going on alternative energy, taking yourself away from the national grid. So now, states like Enugu, who thought smart ahead, took advantage of the fact that the Constitutional Amendment has taken electricity away from the exclusive legislative list. And they quickly came to Enugu generation and then did all their, they took the first step and deregulating the market here. So some people are also going to court to argue that, those clusters for Band A, Band B, or whatever way they have been categorized, infringes on their right against discrimination. So how do you say to that? If you give a section in a particular city, look at a cluster and say this is Band A, how do you, begin to do the issue of desegregation? Now, to balance the whole lot, what I feel they should do is to be sure that service delivery and customer satisfaction drives the market. And in that sense, the investor goes for return on investment, and then the ones who are consumers get value for the tariffs, and that settles it.
Okay. All right, let's leave it at that for now. The analysis, of course, time is already up. So many other headlines to look at. Looking at this day, somehow you see the Revamps Nigergas Company Limited coming to the fore. As you know, that was the major news in the state yesterday. The state governor did revamp that asset that has been dormant for close to 30 years, if not 30 years on the dot. I'd like to get your reaction to this Nigergas revamp right before we let you go. I mean, this is in the line of course, the revival of dormant assets in the state, like the ICC, the Hotel Presidential. There's this quest to revive moribund assets. What's your
give
take?
It to him. He deserves all the gallants. The governor of Enugu State deserves all the gallants for what he has done within just 2 years, revamping all these dormant assets. And to cap it up, I want to say that Nigerians don't even know for 4 years now, in this new regime of the PIA, Petroleum Industry Act, that the gas concession commercialization policy gives local investors opportunities to, visit the Niger Delta and then check out some of those places where they have gas, flaring, and do your due diligence and then apply for licenses to get all those gas flaring stuffs commercialized. And I look forward to seeing Nigergas take advantage of that, because right now you see opportunities for the LPG, LEG, CNG, for the market is open.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Okenna, for joining the show. It was really great having you. Your analysis was spot on, and I'm sure you will make a great opinion leader. As we continue to disturb you for subsequent episodes. Thank you once again, Mr.
Thanks
Okenna,
for having me.
us.
Thank you, viewers, at all.
All right, we'll go on a quick break now. When the morning show returns, we'll be taking a deep dive into what the INEC continuous voter registration exercise looks like as in-person registration commenced August 25th. And of course, we'll be cascading it down again to the states where Nigergas Company Limited was unveiled by the state's governor yesterday in grand style. The morning show returns shortly. Stay tuned.